Okay. Welcome back to the Sikhana podcast, where you get to learn everything. We talk everything business, and you get to learn everything business. We're here with Derek Moore. This is my teacher, background on Moore. Graduated from University of Arizona with a business administration major, and he minored in psychology. And then he went to Sac State, and that's where he got his teaching credentials. Taught at Yuba City from 2013 to 2021. Came to Oro High School, which is where we're at right now, and he coaches Little League baseball
and softball
and softball. And you worked for a shipping company?
I worked for the world's largest packaging company.
When was that?
I don't know if it still is the world's largest packaging company, but it was Amcor at the time. But they went through some changes, broke up.
And when was it? That was before teaching?
That was before teaching. That was before I went back to Sac State. Okay. So when I graduated from University of Arizona, I got that job in the Bay Area, working with. I focused a lot on like produce and stuff in the Salinas Valley, but we also sold to big tech companies.
Okay. First question: is going to college worth it? And for business. So we're two-part question. First, is college worth it? And then second is for business, because I heard that you should only go to college if you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, that type of stuff.
Yeah, really depends what you mean worth it by. Like return on investment, maybe, maybe not. But there's a lot of things from college that I learned, specifically expanding my view of the world, things of that nature, meeting people from different walks of life, plus becoming an adult there. But when it came down to the learning and all of that, I think a lot could be done online now or through just experiences. Yeah. Specifically, people now are taking more chances on kids without college degrees because they're starting to see times are changing, right? Yeah. I mean, you have Harvard offering free classes online. Yeah, I think Yale does. So there's things. Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah. Harvard has a few classes. I think it's Harvard online. It's like, 6 or 7 of them. Not sure exactly what disciplines they're in, but there's a lot you could learn from now. So, I don't know. I can't say that I ever regret my college time, but I do understand now with the cost of college. I mean, you don't want to come out with. I mean, I had $45,000 in debt when I came out. So
who would you recommend it to?
Specific doctors, all that for sure, right? That's a specialized degree. But that's like a for sure. But I do recommend college for anyone who has that like drive or passion, who wants to get out, kind of not start career instantly, but go explore some things, maybe meet some connections. For me, the biggest thing was connections. I mean, specifically in the business world, it's who you know, not what you know half of the time. Yeah. And you go to a prestigious school, you're going to get some connections that maybe will open doors later. Yeah. So that $45,000 could be paid off.
So, but my argument was, and for those of you who don't know, we like talk every day. I mean, it's terrible, and he's always right. But I brought up the point that I'm going to college for connections, and you brought up the point that you can make connections online, and you can. And nowadays, you don't even need to go to college for connections. Playing devil's advocate, so now you're sitting here telling me that the reason you went to college for connections, that doesn't make. Well, I mean, I'm gonna throw it back at you. Why can't you just go online and go to LinkedIn or go through Zoom calls and make connections that way?
Yeah, I think now you can. I mean, you have to realize I didn't go to college in 2024. Yeah. So I graduated high school in 2006. So it was, I think, a little different. I mean, I'm going to date myself to you at least, but when you use Facebook, you had to have a college email, right? It was only for college kids. So like really making connections, that was the way. So I do think now you can make more connections. The issue is you yourself have to be really driven and motivated, where I think when you go to college, you're placed around a lot of kids who are driven and motivated, which kind of rubs off on you. Yeah. You know how it is. You surround yourself with successful people, a lot more likely you're going to become successful. So I think there's that, but I do think you bring up a good point of, you could now really connect through the internet almost anywhere, right? Twitter, social media, LinkedIn. This is something that I deal with my wife. I talk about my kids, like, do we start saving for college now? Is it going to cost $100,000 a year once my kids go? And is this something that they're even going to want to do because of where we're seeing society go?
Yeah. And then, but like to your point of online and finding stuff online, what about AI? Like, what effect would you think AI would have on learning?
On learning?
Like in terms of, if you think about it, your kids, when they go to high school, will use AI. Like they won't have the, I guess, way of thinking of being able to fully critical think or use their brain fully. They will have something to be dependent on. How does that tie into getting, like we know people go to college. I mean, you said it yourself. People go to college and then they'll use like AI to get through it, chat, whatever. And then they'll go into their field and they won't know anything. So like in that sense, why can't you just learn what's the point of going to college when you have AI now?
I think if you're going to rely on AI, my argument back would be, if you relied on AI, why do I need you? Why would I hire you? You proved to me AI could do everything that you do, because that's what you just told me that you learned from.
But your college degree is, your certificate's going to say I graduated from like USD. It's not going to say, like, their employers are not going to know that. You know what I mean?
No, but you'll get exposed at some point. Like my issue is I think you're looking short-sighted where I'm looking long-term. Your short-sighted is employers aren't going to know that I'm going to get the job. No, but when you step into that job and make yourself look like a dumbass, how are you going to progress in that job, or where are you going to, right? Are you going to burn those bridges, burn those connections that you initially had because, this guy graduated from USC, but then when you get there and you can't rely on things, right? You're out in the field. It's a one-on-one conversation, and then it's like, this guy doesn't know anything. Then you're going to be exposed. I think you'd rather be exposed early than late, because, right, you're exposed at 30 years old, and all of a sudden you got a family and stuff, and you're like, oh, dude, I'm not going to progress. Where I think AI is going to be a tool, but what you said is, the kids aren't going to be able to think, do that. I think that's going to be the role of education, man. It's not going to be so much factoid knowledge. It's going to be, how do we still critically think? When AI does give you an answer, how do you check this? How do you cross-reference it? Those type of skills, I think, are going to become more important, not just in education, but in society. Look what's going on with, on social media, election news and stuff, right? So I think you bring up a valid point. I think education is going to have to transform. Is it going to? I don't know, because education always seems to be steps behind.
So then what about your jobs? Like do you think that AI will affect certain types of jobs? Like in terms of,
absolutely.
Right? How, because Brandon was on here a few weeks ago, and he was saying how now, like, people who go to trade schools, like plumbers and those type of people, they're like number one millionaires in the world now.
100% agree.
So what jobs, in terms of the business world, like, how would that affect the job industry, the job market?
Well, I think a lot of the business jobs are going to be taken that you think of that are basically like any type of number crunching, right? Accounting. Why couldn't AI do your debits and credits for you and make sure everything's fine? And then if there's a problem, how quick is AI going to be to find it relative to a human, right? So I think those, when I was growing up, they told us all to learn to code. AI could code now.
Yeah.
So, sure, someone needs to code AI, but at some point it's machine learning. It's going to learn to code better than a human. You have other non-business jobs like truck driving. Imagine, I don't know how many truck drivers there are, something you could look up, but 100,000 truck drivers just all of a sudden one day unemployed. And a lot of people will argue, and I don't per se disagree with this, but I think there's a more nuanced issue of it, is that, we've been through this before. Industrial revolution, right? People needed to learn to come from the farms into the factories. Job skills are going to change. And that's what's going to happen in this AI revolution, that job skills are going to change. But my argument would be, I think there are going to be a lot of white collar jobs, not blue collar jobs.
This is Aiken from the future. The camera ended up falling, so I'm going to summarize what happened real quick. D-Moore basically ended up talking about how small businesses would be affected by AI the most. And I brought up the point of emotion and how AI can't really learn emotion as well. And to that, we both kind of just agreed on the point of, are we going to lose human connection? From there, we started talking about his startup at U of A and why he has credibility in the business industry, which his startup did end up not working out because of a patent issue. And so then I asked, right, as a high schooler, is it good to work?
Oh, I think it's critical. I actually think education, if possible, should put more internships or job programs in where kids are being forced to go out and work in the real world. The reason why is because there's so much to learn that can't be learned in a classroom. Just interactions with different type of personalities that aren't high schoolers. When you go and I don't know, you're working a cash register, you're working at a restaurant, you deal with all walks of life, the happy people, the mad people, and you kind of just learn how to deal with that. Plus you learn a lot of like soft skills, right? Why is it important to be 5 minutes early, not just on time or late? Like, what is that? And what I see from at least teaching is there's a lot of this idea like, oh, if I'm 2 minutes late, not a big deal, right? Because I think it's kind of the culture that you see in schools. It's like, it's hardly, not the end of the world. But when you get to a job, there's a lot more reality that's given to you. Like, this is what not high schoolers are looking for. This is what professional adults are looking for. So I think what it does is it gets you guys to mature more and kind of see the world through a different lens. I think all high schoolers in a nutshell, including me, I would say everybody, is pretty much, I mean, you see the world just through your lens. It's hard to really step out and understand that. And you're a little ignorant, right? Like you just really don't know what's going on. So you think you know what's best, but then all of a sudden it's not hearing it from a teacher. It's hearing it from someone who's paying you. It hits different. It's
how are you supposed to work at that age? I mean, aren't there like requirements? Like you have to be 16 and older or 18 or older?
I don't know all the requirements now. Like for me, when I say I started working, it was like umpiring Little League Baseball, right? So these were small things, but what it did is make me deal with adults. It put me in very uncomfortable situations as a 13-year-old having to talk to 35, 40-year-olds. That's not something that's normal. What it does is it builds confidence within you. Like, oh, I could do this. Like, this isn't that scary. So I think a lot of it comes down to like personal growth, right? Like internal growth, personal growth of you start believing in yourself. You see what you're actually capable of. Where, I mean, you saw in my class, there's kids that are scared to even present to the class. These are other high schoolers. How are you going to talk to 25 adults?
True.
You know, that have opinions that might know more than you. That's intimidating.
Yeah.
So I just think working is, it's just a form of learning at your guys' age. Yeah. Learning how the world works.
You don't do that in the sport though. You don't talk to, you're on a team. So sport versus job, right? Let's say your kids, when they get to high school, play softball, play baseball, whatever. Would you make them get a job?
I mean, I did both. It's hard to say would I, because I'm not there. I don't want to be that one who's like, oh yeah, your kid's playing a sport, you should. I think what I'm going to try to do, though, is encourage them to, you know, on the weekends, if they don't have practice, pick up a side gig, even if it's not an unofficial job, but you're doing things to help someone out, just really to show that responsibility outside of the house. I think sports is a good way of learning a ton, dude. That's why I coach sports. That's why I want my kids to play sports. I played sports to learn. I learned a whole hell of a lot, right? On sports when I look back, just teamwork, how to communicate, discipline, that. But it's different when you're going to a job. I feel for me, sports was something that was enjoyable, where a job, it's not always enjoyable, man. Right? I enjoy my job, but there's 20% of my job where I'd rather not do. You have to learn to kind of get through that grind, you know, that type of stuff. So, I mean, I hope my kids work, but to say that I'm going to make them, I don't even know where the damn world's going to be in 5 years, dude.
Yeah. So, your packaging company that you did, you made more money than teaching.
Yeah, way more.
Why did you come down to teaching?
I left for a personal thing. I know kids argue with me all the time where I'm like, money can't buy happiness. And they're like, what do you want me to live under a bridge? It's like, no. Like, you need a set amount of money to live comfortably, right? Like, I live comfortably. But, man, I couldn't see myself doing that grind. My wife does it. I think there's a certain personality that really thrives off of that. But I was doing outside sales, man. I was up at 6 o'clock, not getting home till 6:30. And I just couldn't see myself doing that grind forever. Yeah. I think I just got lucky that I realized, dude, the hell with this. Let's go find something that I enjoy doing. And then I'll figure out life from there. I didn't have kids or anything then, so it's an easier jump, right? It's like, if this fails, well, hell with it, dude. I mean, it's just me. So I just made that jump. And right when I got into the classroom, it was the relationship with the students. But then I also felt like kids wanted to hear someone be real with them. Yeah. Right? Like, that was always my thing. Is like, my dad, you know, his history, right, was in the military and stuff. And he never sugarcoated anything with me. So when I would hear things in class and then go home and he'd like, nah, here's like the real story. Yeah. I'm like, why is no one like this? So that's kind of what drew me to that. And then when I was not liking outside sales, I was like, let's give this a shot, dude. You know, I want to coach. I want to do that. Right when I stepped in the class, I was like, this is it. Yeah. And ever since, I don't miss the money. I truly enjoy, I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't want to wake up at 6:30 every day, but I truly enjoy, like, when I close my classroom door, like, interacting with you guys. Yeah.
So if you were to teach, and you already spoke about this indirectly, your dad, and being honest, tying that into a class, if you were to teach one class that taught you about real life things, like actual skills that you would have to use, whether that's you as a teacher, like, you know what, we'll do, not use a teacher, curriculum based straight. If Derek Moore were to make his own class that would prepare people for the real world, what would that look like?
Man, that's a tough one, because I don't know if there's one class for it. I think what you're focusing on is like what skills are going to transfer. Exactly. Yeah. Because I taught history, realize, and I think it's important to know, you know, all that. But what you're talking about, I think the first thing that we lack is personal finance. Man, how many kids come to me and ask about basic questions about the stock market, basic questions about what a 401k is, basic questions about even how a tax bracket works. Yeah. I think those are kind of the applicable skills that we're missing in education, that when you get 18 and people go, oh, you're an adult now, without parent help, there's a lot of screw ups, right? Like, I have kids coming up to me, I have to file taxes this year. Well, yeah, you're working, dude. Like, but they don't even know what the tax bracket is. Are they going to get money back when they get, you know, when they fill their taxes out, when they're filing and they're claiming 0 or they're claiming 2? What does all that mean? These are like applicable things that you guys are going to run into in any job that you get. Yeah. That we don't teach. And then the question is, how are you supposed to learn that? Sure, we could say, oh, through experience, but I'd rather have you not screw up and realize you owe the government at the end of the year at your age when you're not prepared for it. So it would be more of like a personal finance. I think that would be the biggest thing, building credit, any type of personal finance. And then bring in like advisors and things to talk to you guys, because I think the biggest issue that I see with a lot of high school students is they're looking for the quick out. So when it comes to investments, it's never long-term, right? It's always what's going to make me money right now. And it's like, yeah, but what about your long-term? What about when you are 30 and you're thinking out till 65? So I think that's where, if I was to make a class like 100%, no standards, nothing, it would start with personal finance and economics, 100%. Okay. Which I'm going to do for my 3 class.
So it started with personal finance, economics, go to...
And then it would, well, for my class, it will go into more business finance, but I think it would be personal finance, economics. Man, that could take you through a whole class depending on how detailed you wanted to get. But then I would also just go into... I mean, for me personally, I'd go into some things about like how business ties into government and how some of these decisions are made. Because that's the other thing I get a lot of students asking me, like, well, why this? Why this? And I think there's more nuances that students need to see that, hey, it's not black and white. You've got to show them that gray area, right? So I don't think there's one class that would magically cure all. I think the biggest thing that you need to do in your class is teach them these skills, but also teach them the critical thinking skills. So when they run into something and there's no teacher there, they could go and figure it out.
Yeah.
Because that's where we're getting to, man. It's not so much, do you know A plus B equals C? It's, can you figure A plus B out using your resources when no one else is there?
So this pertains to Del Oro, but for us, we have a new grading system, CBE. Just real quick, what are your thoughts on CBE? The way it works, and this is for people who don't know, is instead of like the 1 to 100 ABC scale, it is a 4-point scale, and you have to show mastery in 6 categories. And
all categories.
Or all categories. Yeah. There's 6 of them, and if you don't do one, like if you don't pass one, you fail the class. What do you think about that?
So, man, loaded question. I think the concept of CBE makes sense, right? Because the concept of it is the idea, like, you're going to prove to me that you actually know how to do this, not just a one-off A, B, C, D test. So I'm all in favor there. I actually think the idea of setting up tests that are A, B, C, and D on education sets you up for some form of failure. Because when do you ever see that in the world? That's not right, unless it's a factoid thing. But if there's any deep understanding that wants to be had, you've got to show that more in writing. So I don't mind the mastery part. I think where I run into the issue is some of the things like unlimited retakes, some of the things that go along with CBE.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in the real world, sure, can you screw up and make mistakes? Yeah, I 100% for that. But there are times where it's like, you got one shot and here is your one shot, right? It's not, oh, well, you screwed up, so now let's come back and show that you could do it again. It's like, no, you screwed up, and in real life, there's repercussions to screwing up. Sometimes they're a lot bigger than others. But I think that's part of the thing that we needed to figure out, I guess is the right word that I use, is like, how do we make this system work? Because I'm all for mastery. I do think it's crazy that a kid knows, let's say there's 5 traits. Let's use math, right? If you don't pass one of those standards or scales, you're probably not going to succeed in the next class, because at some point that's going to come up.
Yeah.
So I do understand that, but I think we need to find a way to fit it into more reality-based, where it's teaching you life skills also, not just educational skills.
How would you do that? How would you fix it or change it?
Some things would be no retakes.
Okay.
Right? Like, hey, this is your one shot. You got a presentation, dude. Let's go. Yeah. Because what that does is teaches you to prepare. There's an urgency. What I've seen right now, and I think other teachers I've talked to, is there's no sense of urgency. Yeah. You have kids, I mean, we're not going to name names, but we even have kids come into our class when there's a presentation and go, well, I'm allowed to be late. I'll just do it tomorrow. And it's like, you're not ready. That's part of a skill. That's part of life.
True. But wouldn't you argue that it's school? Like, you're being taught, right? This is your time to mess up. This is your time to learn from it. Then when you get put in the real world, like, isn't that an argument?
Yeah.
Why would you get rid of retakes if the point of school is to...
I'm not saying get rid of retakes, because but I think what needs to happen is, all right, you're giving an ethics presentation. It's due on this day. Yeah. That doesn't mean I'm not going to give you another opportunity, but you've got to show that you've put in the effort, and that there was some effort, and you really tried to excel from the start. Yeah. Then we could go back and start modifying things. Yeah. But if you're not going to put in the effort, why is it me throwing the life support in to come save you? Yeah. You should want it, right? So let's say I guess the analogy would be you're putting in the effort, but you fell off the boat with no life vest on. Okay, now I'll come and save you. It's not like you weren't putting in the effort.
Yeah.
I think the issue that I have is that kids are putting it on their own time, and life don't work that way. Life works, you're on a lot of other people's times, right? I mean, you've talked about it. You have a coffee with a guy. He goes, you're 2 minutes late, dude, I'm gone.
Yeah.
Like, I got things to do. So what are we teaching them if they think they could do it 2 days late? You're going to go to a manager and tell them 2 days late? So I think school is a time to fail. You know, that's my philosophy.
Yeah.
I want you to fail. We'll keep working. By the end, you'll get it. But I still think one of the skills that needs to be taught is, promptness, readiness, how to prepare for the real world. So I think what you're saying is the opposite argument. What I'm trying to argue is they're both right, but they got to come together to mesh somehow. Because I don't think you taking a one-off test or you doing a presentation and for some reason you struggle, I go, well, he can't present.
Yeah.
What the hell, dude? You put me in the pool for water polo the first day, I'm going to be way worse than I was 100 days from now. Yeah. So I do see that there needs to be building, but there also needs to be some repercussions to not fulfilling your side of the duty. Yeah.
Okay. We're going to take a quick 5-minute break, and then I'll be right back, and we'll pick it up. We were on education, but we're going to start talking about business in terms of how others would be affected, advice for others. So we'll be right back. We're back. We just took a quick break. Now we're gonna start talking about how to get advice for others, right?
I don't know if they should be taking it from me,
right?
But
exactly. Real quick, why didn't you go into the field of business? Yeah.
Open my own business.
Yeah.
I looked at many ventures in college. I think what ended up happening is, to be honest, probably I took the easy route.
Yeah.
Going into business for yourself is scary, right? Specifically at a young age, you're coming out and I wanted to make money. And when you find out you're starting a business, you might not be making money to start off. It's going to be a grind. So I think for me, it was the easy way out, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And this is where I look back on my life and was like, man, I wish I would have taken it a little more seriously here. Because maybe I would have, right? I was the one why did I get a business degree? Well, I don't know. I wanted to make money. Yeah. Then when I got out, what did I want to do? Make money. It wasn't anything. I didn't have a clear vision of what the hell I wanted to do. Where now I look back and I'm like, damn, that would have been, I don't know what business I would have been into, but it would have been ideal to take that leap and just try. Because through hard work, discipline, I have no doubt I could have made it. Yeah. Right. It's one of those, sure, luck's partly involved. I think any business owner would tell you that. But if you set your mind to it, you could do it. So I think for me, the reason I didn't do was honestly, I just wasn't in the right mindset. I think I was in that school mindset still, right? Oh, here's the next step. Here's the next step. Go to college, graduate college, get a job, where I would encourage those, make that leap, dude. Yeah. What the hell? If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, dude. Yeah. You got your whole life left. My biggest worry now is at some point I'm going to go back and regret not at least trying. Sure, could I still now? Yeah, me and my wife have talked about it, just, little things, but never got that ball rolling.
If you were to give someone else, you've had over a decade of experience teaching and seeing people, get to where and you've seen multiple kids who have done their own thing while they're in high school and made a lot of money. Yeah. If you were to give 5 traits to someone either in high school or college, 5 traits that they should possess that you've seen and you've experienced it. You've seen people go from, high school to successful. Yeah. Right? Oh yeah. 5 traits that you would give someone just real quick, what would those be? Right? That someone would possess in order to, become like that.
First one, self-motivated. You got to be motivated for yourself. Yeah. Right? Not because you want people to applaud you like, no, this is for me. Yeah. That's the biggest one. I think another one is openness, willingness to learn. Don't be arrogant. Realize people out there are there to help you. They might come off wrong. They might do that, but people are going to teach you lessons, man. Like that's the biggest thing. So being open-minded and realize that there's a lot to learn. Another one, I would say kind of like that grit, determination. Everybody who I know who's been successful, at least very successful at your guys' age, they're the ones that are up at 4:30, still going to school. But then when they're done, what are they doing? They're working, right? They're sacrificing some of their high school enjoyment for their success, where I don't think a lot of kids want to do that. Those are like the three biggest things that I see there. The biggest one, though, is willingness to learn, man. Yeah. It's like at your guys' age, even if you are successful, you can't get arrogant like, well, I'm 15, I'm 16, and I did this. Look. No, you should be sitting there when you're in a room with a bunch of professionals, be that fly on the wall, start picking all that up, absorb that. And then the other thing I think that everyone that I know who's been successful at your guys' age has found someone, whether it be a mentor, a family member that could help guide them, that they could sit down and have these real hard conversations with, right? That are, hey, we're talking about spending $10,000, $20,000. At your age, that's a hell of a lot of money, right? So someone that these kids could lean on, that they trust, is a huge thing. Huge, because those are the people that are like, we're going to talk about positives and negatives. I'm not telling you not to do this, but realize not everything is, the grass isn't always greener, or it's not always a guarantee.
If you were in high school or college and you could go back and you're reset, how would you find a mentor? Where would you go? Would you go to internships? Would you go to family members and look? If you were in, let's say, college, how would you find a mentor?
I would put myself out there more, right? Start reaching out to businesses, or just reaching out to them, and asking if there's anything I could do. Do informational interviews, sitting down with people within offices and be like, hey, could I interview you for 30 minutes about your job? Just trying to figure it out. I think what that would do is open up more doors to mentors. When I was in college, dude, I wasn't looking for no damn mentor. I was literally there I got good grades, but school always came easy to me, right? Yeah. So I was there for the social life and stuff. Did I meet a few people that opened up doors for me? Yeah. But there was no time that I was reaching out to people, professors, reaching out to businesses that came there and just said, hey, is there anything I could do in the summer? So for me, I think that's the biggest thing, is putting yourself out there, not just realizing that Saturday, sure, at 2:00 in the afternoon, you could be kicking it with the homies, playing video games, or you could be doing something, right? I was the kid who was always at the house or, out at lunch, whatever. I think it's just putting yourself out there, because what I've realized now, and at my age, I'm willing to help any student that comes to me as long as you're willing to put in the effort. And I think that's most people. They see that you're willing to show up, you're willing to grind. Specifically, if you're going to do something for free, why not? Yeah, come mentor, come shadow me. And you've noticed this, and this is the one thing I'll give you a shout out about, is like, you've already started reaching out to people. Sure, is it uncomfortable? Hell yeah. How many times have we discussed, when do I follow up? Yeah. When do I do this? It's uncomfortable.
But you learn through that.
Correct. Yeah. And that's why I think the job is so big. It's like, when do I follow up? There's no exact time. You just got to feel the person out, right? But you're learning through that. You're starting to find out, by you reaching out, people are willing to help you. And I think that's the biggest ball that I dropped. I didn't realize that till I was 25. Actually, when I got into the teaching industry, and, teachers were like, hey, here's all my curriculum. I'm like, damn, they're willing to hand all that over? Yeah. Realizing people are here to help, dude. They want to see others succeed. Don't get me wrong, there's few people who love to see people fail. But at the end of the day, the few students that I've worked with somewhat, like, I love that they succeed. They make more money than me. It's not like, oh, kick me back some. No, I get people get enjoyment out of seeing other people succeed. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's the biggest ball that I dropped.
So in seeing all these successes, there has to have been, like, people that you saw, and I don't want you to call them out, but you're like, what are you going to do? right? How are you gonna go into the real world? You don't have
There's
to
a
say
lot of
anything.
them.
Yeah, you don't have to. You don't have to say any names, but the premise of that, and the reason I'm asking that is, what are like a few things that you see that you're like, okay, this is something that we would want to work to get rid of, traits wise. Like, for example, for me, right? I've noticed that something that I do is I will, like, really want to do something, have that motivation, but I sometimes I just won't have the discipline to keep going.
It's that follow through.
Right. Yeah, exactly. What are a few things, right? And that could be one of them that you think are traits that, if I want to be a successful entrepreneur, I need to work on getting rid of these. I need to work on changing these.
Follow through is a huge one. I mean, we see it with a lot of students, right? They come in fired up about something, but once we get into that mud, that sludge, and you got to grind, and it's a daily grind, right?
Yeah.
People give up, and that's what you were talking about, right? It's easy to see the vision or it's easy to, I don't want to say see it through, but it's easy to see the vision. Like, I want to go from A to Z. Mm-hmm. But when you're in that daily grind, dude, that follow through is really tough. Yeah. So that's one thing that I would work on. And that's where I think deadlines and stuff, it goes back to that deadlines, right? And maybe set smaller deadlines. So you got a month-long project. No, this week you got to get this done. This week you got to get this done. What it teaches you is the discipline of getting through, why it's so important. Because I think what ends up happening is if you see yourself be successful at the end, you realize all that hard work is worth it. It's just going through it. It's tough. So that's one trait, just the follow through, like you said. The other one is just, I don't know if it's just because we're on the internet all the time, is not just willingness to learn, but wanting to, like a true passion, a true drive to get better. I don't always see that from younger kids. Like, I want to get better. And again, I think it goes back to, because getting better is a daily grind, dude. You don't see it, right? You go to the gym, you don't go lift weights once and all of a sudden you're shredded like me.
Yeah. Massive.
I know, massive.
Oh my God.
So you don't go to the gym, and it takes time. So really what I encourage students to do, honestly, in high school is find a few passions. I think this is what students lack. When they go through school, we're putting you in classes. And when someone forces you to do something, it sucks. Yeah. So we got to find a way to get you guys to find your passions, because I think if you find your passion, that's where you'll go with the follow through. I think we don't see a lot of follow through right now because you have zero passion of doing X.
Like, I walked in on Thursday and I saw the girl who was like, right, this is for your business one class, and for Moore's business one class, for those of you who don't know, you have to reach out. You have to take steps to reach out to people that you don't know, and you have to interview them. You still do that, right?
Yeah.
If I don't know what my passion is or what I want to do, how do I find that? Because you were giving her advice. I want you to tell people, because half the people that I know, I mean, we're seniors, right? We have to start applying for majors, and people are saying, oh, I'll just go into business. I'll just go into this, and like, I'll figure it out.
Yeah, like I did.
Okay, if you were a normal person in high school and you were trying to get your shit done, how would you approach finding a passion?
I think the first thing is just sitting down and saying, what do I like to do? Right? Because I think a lot of people go, and I get a lot of high schoolers, sports. Okay, let's get off the sports. I know everyone, it's a tough industry. I'm not telling you not to go into it, but what do you like? Like, what are you interested in? And really, when I sit down with kids and start plucking things out of them, it's like, do you like numbers? Are you interested in math? Does math, okay, what about that? Is it the geometry? Do you like building things? Right? We really need to start looking at your life and what you do on a daily basis that you get enjoyment out of. And once you find out what you get enjoyment out of, I think now we could start looking at different career paths. And it doesn't need to be, like, for me, what I found out is I get enjoyment out of talking to people, being, around others, not sitting behind a desk. So now if you know that we start there, that we realize, okay, I want a job that I get to talk to a lot of people. Okay, now let's break down the jobs that talk to a lot of people. Now let's go through those jobs and say, what sound interesting, what don't? Why do they sound interesting? Why don't they? Now you could start finding these nuanced things of, okay, you don't want to do sales because you don't like that overarching pressure of numbers every single month that you have to fulfill. Yeah. Okay, so we'll get away from that. What about HR? What about, where you're working with people? And I think that's the way to go about it. Because the student that was in my class was saying, I'm just boring. I don't have any passions. And it's like, that's not true. There's something that wakes you up and gets you out of bed every morning to do. What is it? And what I started to find out, right? She liked being around people. She wanted to work with a team. It's like, okay, now let's start to find those things. Yeah. What's a job that works with a team? A lot of guys that I have, when we get to those steps, it's like, what about a firefighter? What about that? What about a lineman? And they're like, yeah, that's it. I'm like, cool. So to me, it's really just sitting down, finding out and you got to be honest with yourself, dude. It's not that easy. But what do you truly enjoy? And then why do you enjoy it? I think that takes time. And you can't just go, because it's fun. No, what about it's fun, dude? Do you like the interaction? I was always the kid who, when I went to parties, dude, I love that, hundreds of people, that crazy energy, where some people hate that. Okay, well, those are vastly different people and vastly different career paths. So now let's start looking into that.
If you were to have $1,000 right now and you were back in college, $1,000, you had to make your own business. That's the only money you can use from there, right? And we're saying you can use the connections from college that you have. $1,000
right now.
How would Derek Moore go about the world to get a successful business with $1,000?
$1,000.
That's it.
Damn. Whew. $1,000. What would I do? Like getting the business started?
Yep. What steps would you take? Would you, look for partners to get more money, how would you?
First thing I'd do is sit down with a few buddies of mine that I hold in high regards, and ask for some advice. Is it better to go out and look for investors with this $1,000, right? Do I use that to go and pitch some things, or do I invest this into some back-end operations to get off the ground? What is that? I think that would be my first step. What would I do with that $1,000? It would all depend on the industry you go in, right? Because if with $1,000, there's not a lot you could do today. So let's say it was, I would have to go into something small to start off with for $1,000. It would be so it would be a localized company like pressure washing, something like that, right? For $1,000. But I think I would use it on some marketing material. Okay. And then what I would do is do a lot of face-to-face marketing where I'm getting my name out there because people like buying from people that they know. That would be my first thing. But then I would sit down with a bunch of mentors and say, okay, how could we grow this?
So then what would you said $1,000 a little bit, but for a college student, all the difference, right? If you were to, I'm trying to think about how to say this. If you were to have an ideal financial situation starting out, right? If I want to start a business, right, and we saw this, a lot of people's worry is what financial situation do I have to be in to be able to start a business and take the risk, right? What would your ideal financial situation be before taking that risk? Would it be, I have a job and I do the 4 a.m.s, or what would that be?
I don't know if it's for me personally, and I don't think this is the right answer for everyone. I guess my worry right now would be my children, right? All shit fails, dude. I look at my kids. So I don't think it's a per se a financial situation. I think it's a where are you at life situation. Can I really dedicate this time? Right now, I couldn't if I wanted to at least continue doing the things with my kids that I do. Because the reason I say that is there's no per se financial situation that you should be in is because I've seen a student grow a business from out of the back of his truck to, I mean, massive now, right? To semis. And what did that take? That didn't take money. And that's where I think I want you as a young kid to understand is that didn't take money, but what did that take? Time, effort, grind. And in business, your time is money. He just wasn't getting paid, but damn, he went out there, he grinded, he was knocking on doors. So I don't want to say that there's a financial, I need a certain financial situation. I think it's a life situation for me.
Okay. So if I'm going to take it back to marketing. Okay. You talked about, you just touched on marketing, ethical versus unethical. Just real quick in general, people don't know this, and we learned this in this class, is marketing for ethical versus unethical. What is the difference, real quick, if you can explain it? Just like, what's an example of unethical? What's an example of ethical? That would be simple.
Well, what we got in class is everybody has a different definition, but when I think unethical marketing, what most people would say is purposely misleading the public. Right? And you see it a lot of the time. We talked about free range. Well, when you think free range and you're thinking, and the advertisement is 100 acres and the chicken's running around, and then we learned that, it's pretty much an open door with some chicken wire out there. I think to me that's what people get rubbed the wrong way. Is that it's super misleading, but it still follows the law. It's legal, but it's like, dude, you know what you're doing. Any average consumer that sees that, so that's what I would consider. So
if you were to have your own business, and we're gonna put this in an ideal situation, I'm starting out, I have my business, just like you said, you'd put that $1,000 into marketing, right? And we'll keep the $1,000. You had $1,000 to put into marketing. Would your marketing be 100% ethical?
Yes, my marketing would. That doesn't mean that there wouldn't be issues, that people wouldn't misinterpret things. I'm not saying I would try that. But yes, specifically for a small company, if you burn, like let's say we started a local business here. This small community, if you burn bridges, your name's all over the place now, right? I think building that trust. So yeah, I would be as ethical as one can, but like you brought up, well, what if you're using a lawnmower that was made in a factory that uses slaves? That's different. I'm not marketing though that I'm using 100%. Yeah, my marketing would be about what I'm delivering. Now, if someone wanted to call me out on the ethicality of you're using this brand, it's like, okay, that's different. I never argued that I'm ethical in that manner, right? But what I'm delivering is ethical.
So, for those of you who don't know, and I didn't clarify this, in Yuba City High School, you taught econ and social studies and all that stuff, right?
Economics, U.S. history, philosophy, or not philosophy, psychology and sociology.
So, from an economic standpoint, financial standpoint, what would you give advice to people about, like, investing, for example? I've heard invest young, figure that out early, so it'll compound. In terms of that, would you recommend a young person to find how much would you recommend a college student to put into an account? What account? Like these type of things.
Yeah, I don't think there is a set amount because I think everyone has, right? Don't invest and then not be able to eat.
Yeah.
But if you have extra money, I'm going to tell you right now, even $100 a month is with compound interest, with those type of things, is going to grow by the time you're 65, dude. You're going to be happy that you did all that. So what I would say is invest early, young, what you can, even if it's $50, dude, $50 a paycheck, do that. And then what I would recommend is budget that in. So when you get a paycheck, try to have that 50 go into whatever account instantaneously. So it feels like you've never gotten that. It's not feels like then you're spending 50 in the investment, right? It just funnels into the investment account. Yeah. It's kind of like what I would say is, what's the good thing about when they take retirement out of your paycheck right now? It's not like I get a paycheck and then I have to bite the bullet of turning in the $1,000 into your retirement account. That's kind of rough. So make sure it's like, as you get your paycheck, X amount transfers to the account that you want it to. That would help. So I don't think there's a set amount, but what I would look at is, for the long haul, I wouldn't go into a bunch of high risk investments, right? Medium growth investments, even slower growth investments that have a trend line that's going up and up and up for the next 20, 30 years. If you could do that, your $100 turns into $1,000, your $1,000 turns into $10,000. And then by the time you're 55, you're looking at retirement accounts, and you and your significant other are talking about, we might be able to get out of here earlier. So I would for sure recommend investing early. You could do anything from Roth IRAs, stock market. Really depends how involved you want to get. But the one thing I always try to tell students, if you do invest in the stock market and you're doing it for retirement long-term, you don't need to check it every day. You're going to go crazy because the stock market's obviously going to go up and down. But if your trend line is, going up at 10% a year, and that's beating, government bonds, that you got a decent investment.
What about credit score?
I think you guys need to start building that at the youngest age possible.
How would you build that?
Real easy ways. When you're in high school, if you keep a good relationship with your parents, ask them to put you as an authorized user on the credit card. They don't need to give you the damn credit card. I know that could go awry, but just put an authorized user. So let's say you're an authorized user on my credit card, and I pay it off every month. You're going to build credit because they see you as a user of that credit card. Get on your parents' bills, electricity bills, things of that nature. So then it looks like you at least have a payment history. You could get secured credit cards. I don't know how old you have to be exactly, but it's where you would put $500 to the bank, and then they'd give you a $500 credit limit. So if you never paid it back, they have your $500. There's no big risk with them, but it helps build those credit. Those are like some easy things that you could do, specifically the authorized user. You just got to make sure your parents have good credit.
Is that legal?
Yeah.
So I can put...
Yeah.
Okay.
As an authorized user.
Okay.
I did that with my wife. So my wife, did some things in college that ruined the credit score. So when we were building it up, she just became an authorized user on the credit card.
Okay.
I paid it.
Paid it off.
She's the sugar mama. So I took money out of our account that she made to pay off our credit card. And she got a credit score. And now we're balling with a credit score.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the biggest thing, because a lot of kids are like, when I'm 18, I'm just going to go move out. Who the hell is going to trust you with any type of finances? Yeah. You can't just move out without mommy and daddy. So don't burn that bridge, and then, get an authorized.
So you're saying use your mom and dad for credit score?
Yeah, as long as they have a decent credit score.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if, again, right, starting a company, we're going to take away from marketing and finance. Would you run your company 100% ethically?
What do you mean 100% ethically? The only reason I ask is because we were in class discussing this.
We were in class, we were discussing this, and I said, I genuinely do not believe that there is a way that you can run a company 100% ethically, for the sole reason that if you're getting imports or something's going on, like, it's just too expensive to be 100% ethical if you are starting a company. I don't believe it's possible. You like to play devil's advocate, and you sat there and told me that it is possible. Look at Patagonia, look at all these people. So if you were to start a company 100% ethically, or would you? If you were starting a company, would it be 100% ethical? I'm going to turn this on you.
Probably no.
Why is that?
Because of what you said in class is like, it's just so hard in a globalized world right now to know everything that you are getting is not sourced, or that there's not one little thing that is unethical, right? We always bring up the cell phones and the cobalt. It's like, oh, would you not use a cell phone because it's unethical? It's like, well, no, dude, I need it to live in today's society, at least where we are, right? So yeah, I mean, no, I probably wouldn't, just because what you said, if you're trying to be competitive, do people care enough about the ethicality? And I'm not sure in a lot of businesses that that's what's getting people to buy your product. I think it's an added benefit to your product, if that makes sense, right? Like, are you going to spend an extra $20 on something just, because they told you that they didn't use a factory in Bangladesh, but they used one in X, and
yeah,
they're
I'd spend
getting paid?
$20.
No, you wouldn't.
Yeah, I would.
Would you?
If I was rich.
Okay, but there you go. Like, if I had the disposable means where I could do everything, but do most Americans have the disposable means to do that? No.
Sure.
So if I'm selling to the general population, I just think that's tough. Now, if I'm selling to a niche market that is 100%, like, we want ethical this, we want, cool. Then that is your company. I just know, me personally, it would be tough to do 100% ethically, like you're speaking. That doesn't mean I wouldn't be ethical with my marketing. I wouldn't be upfront with the people, all that. I would do what I can to be ethical. But damn, dude, if I sourced a blade from China and I found out it was, it happens. Unfortunately.
Define your definition of ethical real quick, because it's complex and some people don't know what we're talking about. What is, if you could give one definition of being ethical or ethicality, what is it?
I don't know if I have a set definition, and this is what I like teaching this about.
Don't you teach a definition?
Yeah, but part of me teaching this isn't because I have an answer. Part of me teaching this is because it's such a nuanced subject. Is why aren't we having these real conversations? Right? Like, I don't know if I have the right answer. Like, do I know that there's slave labor going on? Do I know about the cobalt mines? Yeah. But do I still find myself buying an Apple iPhone? Yeah. Does that mean I support that? No, I'd rather have it not happen. But to find that phone and all that makes it a lot more challenging for me. So I'm going to sound like just an individualistic asshole here. But it's just, the truth is, like, to what point am I willing to make my life harder to help someone that I'm never, ever, ever going to meet or ever even hear of or anything
that's
like
a
that?
crazy statement.
Correct. But isn't that what it is at the end of the day? I'm not saying that I don't care, but you're wearing a shirt right now that's probably made in a factory in Bangladesh. And when you bought it, you didn't go, oh, Lord, that lady might be making 13 cents an hour and the factory might collapse. You didn't give two shits when you bought the shirt. So what I'm doing is just breaking it down. Like I said, I was going to sound like an individualistic asshole, and I don't mean it that way. Do I care about that person? Do I want them to, pair? Not at all. I care about humanity. But at the end of the day, why am I not making the steps to change the cobalt mining?
Yeah.
Is probably because it's going to take a lot of effort from me and other people. And I don't know if the benefit personally for me is there. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like a subconscious thing. It's not me trying to be a mean, individualistic asshole. It's just me understanding the psychology that we are animals at the end. We're doing what's best in our interest in the end of the day.
So what's your definition then? I mean, even if it's a loose definition, right? Because I have a follow-up for that. I want to know.
I think it's doing the... you're going to catch me in so many like hypocrisies here, but I think it's doing the right thing. I want to say in your eyes, but then all of a sudden we could bring up historical examples where it's like, well, that guy thought that was ethical. And you're like, yeah, slaughtering a bunch of humans isn't. Yeah. I think most of us have some form of morality, what's right and wrong. And I think ethics is what you're doing moral and good for society. I guess that will be my loose definition, because we could rock down a rabbit hole on this and we'd be here for 8 hours.
Okay, so what's the difference between ethicality and morality?
I think ethical is more of a societal based thing, where morality is more individualistic based.
Okay.
Because there's different people with different morals based on religious values and all of that. But I think as a company, you have to follow ethics, which societal believe in, right? So that's kind of how I would break it down, at least. Now, are you probably going to get a PhD? Well, if you get a PhD to listen to this, good for you. But if a PhD might listen to this and be like, well, he's wrong. Here's the definition. But that's how I look at it. Like, morals is, I have my own morals. They might be different from you. But at the end of the day, society has ethics that
external. Yeah. So you're saying that moral is internal, and I said this thing on the mic, is ethics are external expectations. Correct?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Ethics are more set by societal standards. For a business wise, yeah.
Okay. So if you were an entrepreneur, what would be one way, or I guess skill? What is one underrated skill that you would master?
Ooh.
Underrated skill.
Underrated skill. I actually think an underrated skill would be, I don't know the word for it, I'm blanking on it, but being able to, I think delegation is an underrated skill.
Okay.
Delegating tasks to people, having faith that they're going to get it done. Because I think what happens a lot is someone, right, you get married to your business. You want to do it all. I know best. Well, dude, you're going to be drained down at some point. You have to rely on other people at some point. So delegate those tasks. Figure out what you should specialize in, what you're great at, and you take that upon yourself. But whatever you're not, try to delegate them to other people or outsource them if you need to. And I don't mean outsource like everything, but there's sometimes it might cost you more money to do X than just pay somebody to do it, because it takes you 8 hours. It took them 2. Boom. Your time is money. So I think delegation of a task, and feeling comfortable to delegate. It's not just telling someone to do something, but truthfully feeling comfortable that the job's going to be done to the standard that you believe in.
So that comes down to trust then.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, but trust is built, but I think the skill is the delegation. And putting sometimes, like you said, trust into other people that they'll get it done, because I do think when people are given a job, they want to do it right, regardless if it's in there for them or not.
Yeah.
And maybe that's me, but like when I do something, I can't stand to half-ass it. It's just, I got to get this. So I think that's most people. I think delegate would be the biggest thing that a lot of young kids have trouble with.
What would be the biggest myth that you've seen go around about entrepreneurship that you could debunk surrounding it?
That high schoolers have?
High schoolers, college students.
I think it's different. Like I think with high schoolers that I see is they see a lot of successful entrepreneurs and they think it was easy, that it just fell into their lap. Where I'm like, really go talk to your parents, because I've talked to some of your guys' parents and you don't realize that they had a 1-bedroom apartment. They were eating top ramen. They were worried about keeping the lights on. You guys just got lucky that now you're in right there in a spot that they've completely made it, where the ball's kind of rolling and they understand what's going on. But there were times that a lot of these entrepreneurs were questioning themselves, man.
Yeah.
Is this the right thing? Like, am I crazy? Am I going to make it? And I want young entrepreneurs to know that's a normal thing that's going to come through your head, right? It's going to. It's not going to be easy. You're going to have some self-doubt. But if you stick on the course and you're self-determined, you follow through, you see what it brings. And what I want them to know is you're successful entrepreneurs. The reason you don't always hear about the hardships and stuff is because they work their ass off to be successful So they are where they are, and that's what you're seeing. That's what they're talking about now. Really sit down with them like you are now. You've probably heard some hardships that people have went through. Like, damn, are we even going to make it? And dude, it strains relationships and stuff. So that's what I want kids to know is like, entrepreneurship is a grind. It's a bitch. Are there going to be failures involved? Hell yeah. But it's how you pick up your pieces and move forward.
Yeah.
And in the long run, does it pay off? Yeah, for individuals who grind. But it's not going to be easy. And I think too many high schoolers go, oh, it's going to be easy. And I mean, how many high schoolers do we have that say, I want to be a millionaire by 25?
Yeah.
And then I go, how are you going to do that? I
don't know. Yeah.
Well, okay. There's your disconnect there. That this ain't easy, dude. Grind. You've got to want it.
Where would you draw the line between, I guess, your personal life and being healthy and balancing that versus being on the grind? Where would you draw that line? Right? You're working on a business. Would you do the 4:30 a.m. sleep at 11 repeat? Like, where is your line for that? What's the perfect balance between?
For me,
yeah.
I think again that depends on where you're at in life. You got kids. I think there's a different balance than if you don't. If I didn't have kids, would I grind? Yeah. Now there's got to kind of be a disclaimer with that. You can't grind forever.
Yeah.
Right? Could I grind for 2 years like that? Sure. But am I going to grind like that for 15? Hell no. Because at what point, what am I working for? I'm living to work. I want to work to live. Right? Is that the right?
That makes sense.
Right? That's what it is. You work to live. I want to go and like enjoy myself. So I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, that's what the drive is. That, hey, you might put in 3 years of hard work, but in the long run, that work-life balance is going to be there. Like for me right now, what I love about teaching is the work-life balance. I get off at 3:30. I get to go to my kids' sports. We get to cook dinner as a family. We hang out till 8:30 as a family. Like that's great for me. If I was an entrepreneur, would it be the same? No. I'll just kind of what I took from my buddy who's a successful entrepreneur is he's really had to schedule everything. Vastly different than my life. I kind of live, by the seat of my pants. And my buddy, he schedules family time in. He schedules this time in. And I think it's just more deliberate. So his work-life balance is more deliberate than mine, where it's more, hey, I got to schedule it in. So I think it all depends on the time, place, situation that you're in, what your significant other's doing. Is your significant other also grinding? Are you both in this business? But I do think you got to set it down and give yourself some time. If you're not healthy, if your mind's not right, how good's your business going to be? Yeah. Right. So I don't think there's a perfect work-life balance, but I do think you need to figure out if that's, 20 minutes a day you meditate, you go into a quiet room, maybe it's cold plunge and work out, those type of things. You've got to give yourself some time, in my opinion, every day to do you. Okay. That's my biggest thing.
If you didn't have kids, what is the line between health and grind?
Unfortunately for me, I'd sacrifice my health for the grind for a while. Okay. There's no doubt about that. But I think the line between it is when you start to see relationships of others change with you. And I don't mean like my buddy who grinds, do I talk to him as much anymore? No, but when we do, it's still that relationship. It's still there. I think when you start to see those type of things change, you're losing your way. Because at the end, great, you could have that successful business, but your family, your friends, those closest to you are going to mean more. And if all of them are gone from that grind. So again, I know you're looking for a straight answer. I just don't think there's one, but I think it all depends on your circle around you. How are they responding to you and things of that nature? I know personally, I would sacrifice my health for a short period of time. Okay. I'm not saying that's the right answer. Yeah, no. But I'm just saying I would.
So what about surrounding yourself with people.
Yeah.
How important is that to surround yourself with people that, go ahead.
I think it's the most important thing. Because I think if people are draining on you, telling you that you're going to fail, telling you that this is a stupid idea, bro, that's going to weigh on you. You're going to go to work. Those subconsciously.
Isn't that honest? Like, isn't that advice from others?
No, I think there's a difference between advice, right? Sitting you down and going, hey, I have a real concern about this and tell you why. That's different than always in your ear, you're going to fail. This is bullshit. This is that, right? There's a difference.
Yeah.
When I have a homie sit me down and go like, dude, we got to talk. Like, what you're doing it's different than them just talking shit to you. Uh-huh. So I think you need to surround yourself with people who are trustworthy and real, but at the same time are going to support your best interest. And yeah, sometimes that means sitting you down and having that hard conversation, but you need that person not always to just be like, you're going to fail. This is stupid, da-da-da. It's like, okay, if it's stupid, why? Let's change it. Is there a direction I could go? So I think surrounding yourself with people who are, highly motivated, like you, that want to get to places like you is essential. I just feel the psychology behind it is when you see people succeeding, guess what you're more likely to do? Succeed. Yeah. It's because you're trying to keep up with the Joneses as much as we hate that. I honestly think surrounding yourself with people who are, I don't want to say like-minded in the sense of we all think alike, but have the same drives and motivations and end goals is one of the most critical things. And I think that's why, at least in our area, if you look, most successful people are friends with who? Other successful people. Yeah. I think it rubs off on each other.
Okay, let's say we weren't in our area. You're put somewhere else. You have no connections with anyone, right? Like, you have parents, you have friends, but you don't have connections to successful people. What steps would you take? Would you start, looking up and emailing people for opportunities? Like, what would that look like?
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. I think we were privileged to be in a nice area where we do have these connections. I think LinkedIn is a huge place to go right now, right? Follow people, start viewing their things, start writing them, and not being a burden on people, but letting them know I'm here to get more information. Yeah. And I think LinkedIn's a good spot to do that, because what you could do is really hound in on like just what business or organization you're at, and then kind of reach out to those people that way. I also think being more open to people around you where they say, oh, we don't have connects. You might indirectly have another connect, though. Maybe that sports coach knows someone here who knows someone there, and just kind of try to follow that trail. Yeah. But I'm not going to lie. Do I think that some kids have more of a struggle than others to get these connects? Hell yeah. Right? But I think the more you put yourself out there, the more you attempt, the more likely you are to get something. Yeah. And I'm not going to say, sure, you put out 10 emails in our area, you might get 9 responses. The kid in a low income area might only get 1 response. It's going to be harder. I'm not saying that, but the whole idea is to put yourself out there. Yeah. You can't use it as an excuse, right? There's societal barriers, right? If I'm rich, I have easier access to X, Y, and Z. But you can't use that as an excuse as an entrepreneur. You've got to just realize, you've got to make your network. And does that mean it might be harder for you to make that network? Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's not possible. Mm-hmm. You can't use that as an excuse if you're trying to be successful.
You touched on LinkedIn. I saw a statistic. If you have a LinkedIn that is, atrocious, and you are looking for a job, and you are looking for a minimum wage job, like a normal job, your LinkedIn will weigh you down, right? Versus if you have a LinkedIn that's really good, it helps you a little bit. Versus if you have no LinkedIn, it's better than having, an all right one, right? I'm going to assume if there was one app that you could give other people to help them get into the business world or even any industry, it would be LinkedIn.
Absolutely. At least right now. Yeah. I mean, is there something that's going to come up in 5 years? Yeah. Probably, yeah. But LinkedIn is a huge connection point.
How important is that And your wife looks through resumes, correct?
I think LinkedIn is as important. If you're going to make a LinkedIn, it needs to be as clean as your resume. No typos, very professional, because it's a way that it's the first presentation that you have to somebody. And it's a different way of presenting yourself than the old school paper resume. You could actually put more people, you could post videos on there, what your interests are, like, right? And I can now go on there and see, oh, Acom has posted 7 different TED Talks that are all finance TED Talks. He's into this. It gives me a little more insight of to who you are and who I'm looking for. I think when kids, oh, I'm just going to get a LinkedIn, I'm going to do it real quick. Hell no, it's got to be, every little piece should be well thought out, because that's your first presentation to any employer.
True. How important is the resume though, right? Follow up.
Just as important.
Why? So if I don't have a resource to get like you will look over students' resumes, right? I'm a normal kid and I don't have someone to look over it. How do I get my resume checked? How do I do I go up to like managers and ask them, how would you work on your resume if you wouldn't have the connection that you had?
At your age, I would talk to any adult. Most adults have seen a resume, right? Yeah. And know what it does. Does that mean it's going to be perfect? No. But once you start applying to places, let's say you get rejected, or they say, let's say you go to a restaurant and they say, we're not hiring right now. There's no harm in asking, well, I have a resume. Do you mind just taking a look over it and giving me feedback on it? I think that's one place to start. Does that take courage to get out there and ask? And is it uncomfortable? Yeah. But I think that's a place to start. The others is go to, I don't want to say local businesses. I think that might be a little weird. Like, hey, do you mind taking a look at my resume? It's like, but anytime you turn in a resume, you get a decline. Shoot an email. Do you mind giving me feedback on my resume? What did you see? And I think that's just a good place to start. But besides that, ask adults, man. Ask some trusted adults or other people that have jobs. Use the internet, right? I think in my class, there's a great website from University of Colorado at Boulder that gives a bunch of action verbs. I think going on to the company's website and seeing what verbs they use, those are just small little skills that you could use without anyone looking at it.
And implement those, right?
Yeah, implement those, because if they're using a word like teamwork, or they're using a word proactive, and it's all over their website, that's how they talk. That's their vocabulary in their business. Throw that into your resume, because what that's going to do is it's going to show, first of all, subconsciously, it's going to open up like, oh, they talk like us. But secondly, it's going to say they've done some research on our company. They're a step ahead.
You touched on being uncomfortable versus comfortable. I saw this, I think Goggins was on a podcast and I saw it. If you're uncomfortable, and I don't know if you know about this, if you're uncomfortable, there's a part of your brain that grows that can help with longevity of life and all that, right? How important is that for you to implement in your daily life, being uncomfortable? And that is like doing things that you don't want to do. Because I know you don't go to the gym. You told me you don't go to the gym anymore.
Yeah.
Right? But like, what do you take steps out of your day to be uncomfortable on purpose?
No, actually. I think it would, I don't think it's a bad idea, but for me to step out and say that I do it on purpose to be uncomfortable, no. Do I think my job lends me to uncomfortable situations daily? Yeah, I got 40 high schoolers that say random shit constantly in class, where it's like, how do I address this? How do I address this? That's uncomfortable. Coaching, got a lot of uncomfortable ability with parents and things of that nature, but I don't specifically go out of my way to be uncomfortable. Do I believe Goggins is right? Yeah. I told you I don't go to the gym, but when I went to the gym, I was more mentally and physically healthy. Why? Because it was an hour and a half that I pushed myself to be uncomfortable as hell.
Yeah.
That made me feel better at the end. Did that hour and a half suck? Yeah. Do I know I should? Yes. But I think My issue that you're bringing up is, how do I make myself uncomfortable? Am I just going to go to the public library and start speaking to random people for an hour a day? Like that feels odd, right? The gym is a natural one to feel uncomfortable, but I don't know what else I would do to make myself uncomfortable. But do I think it's important? Yes, because you grow from it.
Okay. Well, then and this is, I think, a really complex question. When would you, you gave up your job making more money to teach. When will you be happy? What is your, right? When will you say, I'm done. I'm happy. I'm retiring.
I was going to say I'm happy now. Do I want to end? No. I don't know. I think you're asking a question that I can't answer because I don't have that feeling that I'm done yet.
Okay, let me help you out. I saw something where it was some guy's like, okay, I want to finish, like, stop everything when I have a legacy that's built to where other generations will know about me. That's the type of thing I'm talking about. Like, and you can take a second to think about it, is when will you be happy? Is it when you make a, good enough impression on your kids and they're into the world and they have their own life? Is it like when after they go to college, when will you be happy and, put the shoes up, you're done? When is that?
I don't know if I've ever thought about that. Kids, one of them for sure, right? When my kids get out of the house, I see them be successful individuals.
Yeah.
And success does not mean money to me, but they have a family, they're living on their own. They're doing something they like. They're in a healthy state. That would be great. I think with my profession though, if I'm being honest, I could leave teaching right now and think that I've done a hell of a job. Just the impact that I've had on a lot of students, they've come back. I have a burning desire though to go teach again in really people with unfortunate circumstances.
Yeah.
So, I want to get into a prison and teach.
Yeah.
So for me, I think with that burning desire, I will be ready to retire when I no longer have that burning sensation inside of me that there's more that needs to be done. And right now I have that. I have that with high schoolers. I have that I want to get into the prison system and teach. So I still have these burning desires where there's still that light, that flame lit. So at least for me right now, I think that I've given back and I've done a good job with that. So I know a lot of people are like, when I leave a legacy and all of that. This might sound bad. I think I have a legacy. Now, it's not one that's anything crazy. They're going to have a statue after me. But there's enough students that 5 years later have reached out to me saying, hey, I just want to thank you, da-da-da. So I think legacy for me has been made and still being made. But really when I stop having that flame to like, I've got to do this, I've got to. And right now I still have I'm chomping at the bit. Like I've got to.
What's your goal then? Like, let's say 5 years from now, what are you planning to do? Not 5, 20. What are you planning to do after teaching?
I don't have a plan right now.
Well, you mentioned prison, right? Prison system.
Yeah, I want to go teach. When I'm done teaching at Del Oro, probably get into the prison system.
And why is that?
I just have this genuine belief, and I'm going to give Brian Stevenson a shout out. The guy from Just Mercy, is he said, you judge a society how they treat the lowest rung of citizens. Right. And that's always stuck with me. So I'd love to get into the prison system and actually help 30 people rehabilitate. Yeah. Right. My background with, my dad being in legal troubles, my stepmom being in legal troubles, things of that nature, is I think giving up on those people is a problem that we've had. So for me personally, I want to go in and just, even if it's one, it's like change their life around somewhat. Yeah.
This is going to be off the top of business. So if you were here for business, All right, it's done now. What is your thought on the death sentence? In terms of like, I've seen it's very conflicting sides of, you know, some people thinking that, okay, people deserve to, right, if they've done something really bad, deserve to just die. And then I've seen other sides of it's possible for reform to happen, and you should always give someone a second chance and that type of thing.
Man, the death penalty is a tough one. This might have to be my last thing, by the way.
Fine.
Kids are, the death penalty. Here's the thing that I always come back to. And, for me, I was against it because of the economics of it, at least in the state of California, but they've changed some of that. The biggest thing that I have that's weird is like, okay, someone goes out and murders somebody, right? They need to be executed. You just told that person it was wrong to kill somebody, so now their punishment is going to be allowing the state to kill them?
Yeah.
It seems like you're letting the state live above the law. But at the same time, I understand someone's committed a heinous crime. I think it really looks... For me, it's how you look at the system itself. Should this be a system of rehabilitation or should this be a system of punishment? If you have a system of punishment, the death penalty is looked at completely differently than if this is a system of rehabilitation. Yeah. We advertise that our prisons are systems of rehabilitation. I'm not sure I believe that that's what our system is doing.
Have you been to have you seen that yourself, or is this just solely off media?
Solely off media and statistical evidence of recidivism rates and things of that nature. I just think we need to do more to realize that these are individuals who made a terrible mistake. Some of them probably wanted to, right? But some of them, I do think if you're going to put someone behind bars for 20 years and then let them out, you better make sure that they are somewhat functioning in society, because if not, they're going to resort right back to crime. Yeah. So that's where the death penalty gets me, is like, kind of, what is it? Is this rehabilitation or is it punishment? Yeah. And then that you could really start there.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you for coming on. And yeah, that's all I got. That was my last question too. So perfect.
Perfect. Thank you, dude.